All right, peace to you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to speak about how not only are atheists untrustworthy, but this is even a concept which is tacitly, not explicitly, but tacitly, acknowledged in our legal system that atheists, people who don't profess any belief in God or any belief in a higher power, that they're inherently untrustworthy. And that is specifically with the legal concept of an oath. Now, what is an oath? Well, an oath is basically saying that it's an assurance that what I'm telling you is the truth. We take oaths in court whenever we're called to court. Sometimes they need us to take an oath that our testimony is valid, our statement is correct. And going against that oath, or rather, I should say, the oath that you make, contravening it, or if it's found that what you said is false and you willingly lied, this is a crime in court, which is called perjury, So when it comes to taking an oath in court, if you are a religious man, doesn't matter from what background, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you're a Sikh or whatever, they'll get you to swear on your holy book, the holy book that you subscribe to, that what you're saying is the truth. So if he's a Sikh man, they're going to get him to swear upon the Guru Granth Sahib. If he's a Muslim man like me, then they're going to get me to swear upon the Quran. A Christian man, they're going to get him to swear upon the Bible, etc. And what does this mean? When let's say if I'm making a testimony in court and I have my hand upon the Quran and I swear that what I'm saying is the truth, essentially I am, and people don't understand this, but in our secular, God-deprived age, devoid of any higher meaning and purpose, but what I'm essentially doing when I make that oath upon the Quran is I am appealing to a higher principle, a higher authority, and I am using that higher authority as a security upon what I say. So, of course, the Quran tells us God tells us to tell the truth all the time. We are not to lie, but especially if our hand is upon the Quran, we definitely cannot lie, no matter what. We tell the truth all the time. God even says he hates those who say what they do not, right? So we are to be honest all the time, but especially if our hand is upon the holy book, which we believe in, this is an extra security for what we're saying. So if we lied, if we willingly told a falsehood with our hand upon that book, we are profaning that holy and high principle which is above us. That is essentially the concept of an oath. They use people's fear of God and acknowledgement of higher principles and holiness as a security for what they're saying, and it holds them accountable for what they're saying, that you're not going to willingly lie. And they use people's fear of God. If I was called to make an oath in court and they force me to put my hand on the Quran, there's no way I can lie. It doesn't matter if it's against me, doesn't matter if it's against my wife, doesn't matter if it's against my family. I cannot lie upon that statement. I have to say the truth if I'm put in a position where, the Quran is in front of me and my hand is upon it and I swear upon it, right? So this is acknowledged in our court system. If a man is religious, they bring the holy book and he swears upon that holy book that what he's saying is the truth. So that fear of God, that somebody having a fear of the Lord is inherently trustworthy. And the natural corollary to that is having no fear of the Lord is completely untrustworthy. Now, atheists, they can take oaths in court, but essentially what it boils down to, it's empty and meaningless. It's just trust me, bro. Just trust me. What I'm saying is the truth. Because they don't believe in God. They don't believe in a creator. There's nothing they humble themselves to and lower their head to. They are the God, the false God of their own world. They make decisions purely based on their own vain desires. There's nothing higher, nothing above them which they appeal to. So an atheist oath is meaningless. And this is essentially acknowledged in our court system, because if a man is not an atheist, if he has a professed, time-tested faith, which goes back to the ancient world, something he's holding upon, a root that gives him context. If he is that kind of man, they will bring his book. Basically, they in a sense force you to say the truth upon your fear of God. Let's say I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. I believe this word is holy. I believe in my Lord and I acknowledge this word. So therefore, what I'm saying right now, this testimony I'm giving, it cannot be false. It cannot, because if it is, if I willingly lied right now, I am lying upon something holy and I'm invoking the curses of the divine upon me. And this applies to all religions, all faiths. And that's what I'm getting to right now, is that why, if you are a religious man, they encourage you, or they tell you to take an oath upon your holy book. If you're not, then they just make you make this oath, which is meaningless. It's just trust me, bro. There's nothing higher you're appealing to if you're an atheist. But if you aren't an atheist, they try their best to bring that book in front of you, because they know deep down, they know that believers in the Most High, people who have a time-tested faith, they acknowledge principles above them. They acknowledge the divine. They humble themselves before the divine. Doesn't matter what religion they come from, that these people are inherently more honest and trustworthy. You can bring the truth out of them when you call upon the divine, because they feel duty bound to the divine, to not profane the divine. If they lie upon that holy book, they have profaned the divine and invoke the curses of the Most High upon them. So this is just understood. It's understood. I mean, how could you? How could you trust a man who, and this is something, I wish, well, I'm not in regrets, but I wish I asked Fight the Flat Earth and these types of guys, these atheists, or if I ever debate an atheist in the future, this is something I'm going to ask them. I want to genuinely just sit down with them and say, do you really believe, because these guys, they think that when they die, it's just lights out, there's no resurrection, there's no anything, a ludicrous, grand statement they're making, a grand, wicked falsehood. But I would just sit one of these atheist guys down and ask them, do you really honestly believe that the way you live your life here, if you get away with it, if you don't get caught by mortals, if you just live your life like a savage and scoundrel and die, that you're not going to be held accountable for how you lived? Do you really believe that there's no accountability for the way you lived your life on the other side? Why would you trust somebody like that, who doesn't believe in a resurrection, who doesn't believe in a judge, who doesn't believe that there's an all-knowing, powerful creator watching over him and keeping him in line? Every action he does is recorded. Why? Why would you trust somebody who does not believe in that, who thinks that this life is all there is, and when they die, it's just lights out forever? They go to an eternal dirt nap. This secular age, despite us trying to get rid of the concept, not you and me, but just the society in general, the secular society, despite us trying to get rid of the concept of God, the concept of truth, the concept of morality, the concept of higher purposes and principles to appeal to, the divine, oh, these things are unscientific, oh, they're just hocus pocus stories from the ancient world, and they're these old texts written by ancient desert-dwelling sheep herders. These guys wrote the Quran and the Bible. They didn't know anything, so they just tried to explain all these phenomenon in the natural world by supernatural means, but now we know better through science. If like that type of worldview, this kind of mindset, it has essentially rendered meaningless the concept of an oath. An oath which is acknowledged in court, and it's a crime to say something false knowingly upon an oath, right? You can go to jail for that, perjury, right? The very idea of an oath is based on higher principles. It's the divine is right now watching over me. I have my hand upon something divine right now, and I swear upon the holiness of this thing greater than me. And if I say a willing falsehood upon this thing, then the curse of the divine is upon me. Even we have this idea in the Quran, right? With the people, when they're giving testimony to a woman committing sexual immorality, ideally we are to produce 4 witnesses if we're going to make that accusation upon a woman, because it's a very, very serious thing. And if we can't, because sometimes things do happen in private, sometimes a lot of times there isn't 4 mortal witnesses to the action. God says basically they swear upon the Lord that they're not, that the man swears upon the Lord that he's telling the truth, and that the curse of God be upon him if he be a liar. And the woman swears, if she's saying, no, I did not commit this act, she swears upon God that what I'm saying is the truth. I did not commit this sexual immorality. I did not commit adultery, and the curse of God be upon her if she is a liar. So this concept of an oath, it's inherently built upon the presumption, or I should say the assumption, the acknowledgement of higher principles, and it's rendered completely meaningless in the secular world, which does not want to give any credence to higher principles at all. They should just take this idea of an oath out of court in general. Again, they are tacitly admitting that people who believe in the Lord and the divine are more trustworthy than people who don't, because whenever you do believe in the Lord, they make sure to get you to swear upon those things which you acknowledge as divine. What this secular society has done is, by the reduction and the minimizing of every higher order principle and divine thing as just being made up stories, just a matter of opinion. There's no real right answer on what faith is correct and God and this and that. It's just all made up stories. This mentality has it has drained all the vitality out of the world, all the vitality because of the concept of meaning behind our testimonies, meaning behind oath, meaning for our lives in general. Meaning is completely gone when you take out the divine, and we are suffering from that. The world is falling apart because of this idea that people have subscribed to, that God is just a made-up fairy tale. But so, are atheists allowed to give testimony in court? Yeah, of course they're allowed to. In this system, they're allowed to take oaths. But the point which I'm trying to emphasize is that all the atheist can say in the court is, just trust me, bro. I pinky promise what I'm saying is true. But if you are a believer, and it's interesting because this is a secular society, they see all matters of God and quote unquote religion and everything like that, even though the atheist does have a religion. It's just all matters concerning traditional religions, traditional worldviews with God and higher order principles, afterlife, angels, things like that. They consider it as just things of opinion. You have your opinion, this person has their opinion. There's no right answer about this because it's really all mythological anyways. It's interesting that that very same secular system, when a man who believes in the Lord comes in their secular court, he has to do something far above what the atheist does. The atheist, all he can say, he has nothing else to appeal to. All he can say is, oh, just trust me. But the believing man, when he is held under duress, he has to give testimony in court and take testimony under oath. They make him swear on his holy book. Basically, the one who believes in the Lord, he can offer a higher level of security in his statements than the atheist. The atheist, all he says is trust me, whereas a believer in the Lord says, trust me, I swear upon the Quran that this is true. So that's a tacit acknowledgement right there that we can offer a greater level of trust in our statements. That's what the atheist does. It's not enough for us. They know that we have something which really, really scares us and keeps us straight and makes our testimonies valid, at least makes us give testimonies that are as valid as possible to the best of our knowledge. They know we believe in that, so they bring out the holy book. And this higher level of security and trust in our statements, what is that based on? Not just saying, oh, just trust me, but on the Quran, on the Bible. What is that based on, this higher level of security and trust in our statements? It is based on our fear of God, our love of God, our acknowledgement of the divine, our adherence to higher principles. Our fear of God and our love of God and the fact that we believe in him in the first place inherently makes us more trustworthy than the atheist. Why? Because in a court, we are commanded to go above and beyond when we take an oath. We take an oath on that which is holy. We have to go further than the atheist because the courts understand that people who believe in their Lord, they feel duty bound to say the truth, especially when the divine is invoked in the conversation. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out. Peace and blessings in the name of the Most High, viewer. My name is Walid Naeem, and I am a zealous submitter to the one true God, the creator of all mankind. Do you notice something wrong with the world? Something strange? Despite us having a church, synagogue, and mosque in every neighborhood, how has this entire Western civilization fallen into abject atheism, nihilism, and savagery? Why does life just seem so dull, so meaningless, and so devoid of anything real in the Occidental world? Despite the ubiquitous presence of these religious institutions, why are our so-called Muslim sons in large numbers drinking, smoking, partying, and chasing after women, with no seeming desire to do anything more with their life other than satisfy their base pleasures, when God has commanded them to be clean, righteous, and responsible leaders of their community? And why are our hijabi so-called Muslim daughters walking around with tight jeans that reveal their figure, with TikTok accounts posting semi-provocative, self-absorbed videos of themselves online for the world to see, when God has commanded them to lengthen their garments and be modest in their mannerisms? What has happened here? These young men and women are supposed to be making themselves right before God while raising the next generation of ardent defenders of the holy faith. But it seems that Islam features no more in their lives other than a scarf on their head, a Friday fidgeting around in the mosque when their parents forced them to go against their will, or a decorative hanger in their car. At this rate, if God allows us to continue going down the road it is, then Islam and the Quran will become pretty much non-existent in the lives of most of our descendants, if it wasn't already non-existent now. If we do not take a stand soon, in a few generations our children's children will likely be indistinguishable from the secular West. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Our kids to live in? A world practically devoid of the remembrance of the one God and all things sane? I obviously can't speak for you, but for my own self, I can personally say, count me out of it. I'm not going to sit here and just watch my brothers and sisters, those who claim to believe in God alone, believe in Judgment Day, His prophets and angels, and all the other aspects of this holy creed, get duped into going to hell. I'm not going to let this happen without at least something of an effort on my end to reroute this dark trajectory. So, again, how in the world do we end up here? There is a mosque in practically every neighborhood in the West, and no shortage of donations that get dropped in their boxes. They have had lots of funding, lots of time, and unquestioning support from their respective congregations, yet somehow have been run over by the secular atheist. All of their so-called Muslim children go to the atheist, secular public schools for most of their week to be taught beliefs that are completely incompatible with the Quran. And we wonder why they have ended up the way they are. If these houses, and by these houses I mean the mosques, were truly of God, that were doing everything right, then why would our Lord let them get so decisively trampled upon by their enemies? Why do the wicked have all of the reins of power here? Clearly, something is not adding up. Well, it is my thesis here today that the vast, vast majority of mosques that exist in this world today have lost their way and follow a religion which is completely foreign to the Quran. This is why they have failed so miserably in the West, and it seems that God has forgotten them. In truth, the real reason behind their shortcoming is that they, and many of us, have forgotten God Himself, which is why He has left us here collecting our bitter receipts. So, what are my exact criticisms of the mosques today? As a Muslim and a man committed to the truth above all else, what are my personal gripes with their institution, which claims to be for God? The first glaring problem I can think of is that the majority of people who call themselves Muslim have allied themselves with a body of literature that is foreign to the Word of God, treating it equal to, and in fact above, the Quran itself. Of course, I am talking about the Hadith. Listen, the facts are this. There is no justification within the Quran which tells us to follow this Hadith stuff, which came hundreds of years after the Prophet Muhammad died, and therefore he could have had no ability to oversee what people have said about him and determine if it is true or false. It is now becoming crystal clear, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that many things that have been ascribed to him in their most quote-unquote authoritative texts, which they call their Sahih Hadiths, are forgeries that directly contradict God's final revelation. To take these words of men, i.e. the Hadith, and hold them to be equally authoritative to the words of God would be breaking the first and most important commandment, which is to worship God alone, making no equals with Him. To say that these supposed words of Muhammad, which are not even Muhammad's own words, but simply very doubtful rumors about what people who existed hundreds of years after him say he said, that have been decided upon by the scholars as authoritative, holds equal, or in fact any weight in our faith comparable to the verbatim words of God Himself, the Holy Quran, is idolatry. You are exalting man's words to the status of divinity, which should only be given to God's words. Nothing comes even close to the Quran, because God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is its author. This includes the Hadith too, which pales in comparison and is superfluous to the glorious Quran. If you are interested in seeing a full refutation of the Hadith, you may watch my video titled A Defense of Prophet Muhammad, David Wood and Hadith Exposed, which is linked below. In it, along with refuting and putting in his place the worst opponent of Islam on the internet, Mr. David Wood, I also expose how the Hadith is completely contradictory to the Quran and the source of much of the Muslim world's problems. It is a 2-hour-long documentary where I seek to demonstrate the true character of Muhammad in the Quran, defending his history and personality with primary source quotations. I clear the last prophet of God's name from the people who have tarnished his reputation the most, which are certain types of Christians, and, sad to say, Hadith-following Muslims, which have said many terrible things about him. No, Muhammad was not a money-hungry, tyrannical warlord who married a 6-year-old girl. He was a shy, humble, meek man who married adult women, had compassion for even his worst enemies, and oftentimes had a tough time even standing up for himself out of fear of hurting other people's feelings. This is all demonstrated in detail in my video. Once again, the link for that will be in the description under the tab, The True Character of Muhammad in the Quran. So that is the first problem with the mosques, the reason for which I feel they have been forsaken by God, their adoption of an apostate literature which contradicts their foundational scripture. The second point of contention I have with many of the mosques is their seeming unwillingness to say anything controversial which may make them face persecution from their government. The fact that 9/11 was not only an inside job, but the fact that no planes hit the Twin Towers on that day, and the whole charade was a hoax designed by the governments of the world to forever frame the Muslim people as terrorists and justify invasions in our countries, should be taught to every man, woman, and child. This great fraud of the September attacks has left such a lasting, enduring reputation on every brown person and Muslim in general that it should be discussed in every mosque. Our people are not responsible for that crime, but it was the governments of the world who carried out that plot and framed us for it. 9/11 is just only one small example, though. There are many, many other quote-unquote conspiracy theories, which are really just conspiracy facts, avoided by the mosques due to their controversy, like the fact that the monetary system in the West is an ungodly scam based on usury, the fact that the so-called healthcare system is a predatory empire which doesn't try to cure anybody, but instead makes money off of human suffering, the fact that sodomite propaganda is being promoted to the masses, including our children, and the fact that the thing which I will call the C-19er, to avoid censorship, was a hoax perpetrated by the powers that be to greatly expand their police state, censorship incentives, and surveillance systems worldwide in order to create their new world order, and much more. These governments that have occupied our lands are de facto terrorist regimes, and the mosques seem to say nothing of it. They appear to be more concerned with not being labeled extremists while they live their comfortable, well-funded lives, avoiding topics that are hard to deal with due to the abject persecution they bring. That is my second problem with them. Their, at the very least, lack of awareness, or if not, perhaps lack of willingness to address the real geopolitical situation going on in the world. And lastly, my third trouble with the mainstream mosques, which can also be put into the category of conspiracy facts, is their complete ignorance on the true nature of the earth. It may sound as a shock to you, my viewer, that the Quran, the Bible, and in fact all of the ancient scriptures teach the earth is flat and stationary. This is the only model of the world which is compatible with those texts and also scientifically provable. This flat earth conspiracy, which should really be called the globe earth conspiracy, is one of the biggest lies of the modern world, we are told, and goes in line with what I said earlier about the endemic corruption of the governments of the world. Everything you have been told about where you live is a fabrication, and the space agencies are a shameless hoax. For a fully detailed presentation on the subject of flat earth, where I demonstrate the science, the history, the philosophy, the verses in the Bible and Quran proving it, and much more, you can read my book titled The Flat Earth Manifesto, which is linked in the description. This work runs to nearly 1,200 pages and is practically a textbook on not only the topic of flat earth, but the subject of physics proper, and I expose the biggest fraudulent religion of the West, which is science worship, otherwise known as scientism. As with all of my work, it too is available for free. No, you do not live on a pathetic speck of dust spinning around in the middle of nowhere in space. You live in a brilliant, intelligently designed terrarium created by God and are at the center of the universe. Again, to learn more, the link to the Flat Earth Manifesto will be in the description. Those right there are my 3 biggest scores against the mosques of today. There are more points I could bring up, but these are the major ones. These are the controversies which have estranged me from the rest of the so-called Muslim world. Believe me when I say that I would love to join them, and that it hurts me so deeply that I have to pit myself up against the very institution I was born and raised in, the mosques I attended from childhood, whose carpets upon which I walked, stood, prayed, and listened to the preaching in my earliest years. But that is the price to pay for the truth. My commitment to God and what is right is more important than my emotional attachments to a place that was once dear to my heart. Simply put, this is why I think God has forsaken us. This is why I think that the mosques have been steamrolled by the secular atheist. It is because most of us have abandoned the word of God, neglected preaching the truth, and instead chosen comfort over courageous action. That is my thesis to why this great falling away in the West has taken place. If this sounds shocking to you, if it sounds so unbelievable that the majority of the so-called Muslim world could be deceived so badly, then I simply have these verses in the Quran to show you. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Chapter 6, verse 116. And if thou obey most of those upon the earth, they will lead thee astray from the path of God. They follow only assumption, and they are only guessing. Chapter 25, verse 30. And the messenger will say, O my Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned. God has really predicted this a millennia ago. He knew that the people who follow what is really right are few and far between, that the majority of men and women are led astray, and the people who claim to love Muhammad the most, i.e. mainstream Muslims, would abandon the glorious Quran. God has revealed to us 1,000 years ago that this all would be the case. It is my mission, therefore, by the will of God, to band together with like-minded believers who have understood the truth and work together to build a new institution from the ground up, founded upon prudent fear. We need to start fresh, start anew. We need to build a new mosque where people can hear the unfiltered preaching from the Quran alone, where men and women can get married, where children can play and be educated in the truth, and where the name of the Most High God, without any associate partners, can be remembered. We need a group of highly dedicated men who will raise and defend this institution with their own hands if need be, and go out into the world warning people of the punishment of God, bearing witness to the truth of his oneness. That is my mission, my viewer. If you found that this mission of mine has touched your heart and is something you want to get involved with, then feel free to contact me in the email below. I am located in Ontario, Canada, and I'm looking forward to form a community with like-minded believers who want to contribute to this great cause. I am neither a nationalist nor racially biased. If you follow the Quran alone and believe in the truth, then as far as I'm concerned, you are my brother in the faith. I prefer you over someone of my own kindred who denies God and commits corruption in the earth. My loyalties are primarily ideological, not racial. Remember, my viewer, that this life is short. Everything we do and don't do is recorded by God and will either bear witness for us or against us on the day of judgment. Hell is eternal, and I do not know about you, but as for me, I want to meet my Creator in the best state possible. I want to spend my life struggling to build up my people, the true Muslims, so that God may be pleased with me on that day. If you are interested in that, then feel free to join me. If not, then find something else good to do which will prepare you for your appointment with the Most High. That is where we are all going anyway. With that being said, I say peace and God bless to all of you good people. Take care, everyone.